Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Just wait for everybody else to come in. Hello, good morning if you've just joined us. Hello, good morning. Right, I think we have everybody. So good morning and thank you very much for joining us this morning. Bit of a miserable day here in Hampshire, but there we go. I think it's a little bit better over in Spain this morning. My name is Barney. I'm part of the operations team for Nature Trek. I'm in Winchester this morning. I'm joined by Nature Trek's General Manager, Andy Tucker, up the road in Basingstoke. And in location, we have Simon and Niki, and who are also joined by Christina and Federica from Fundación Migres. So just a little bit more about that. Today is in collaboration with Fundación Migres, which is a charitable organisation whose main focus is working on a solution for vultures and power lines. Fundación Migres put out a tweet to advertise this event. So welcome to everybody who's joining us from Spain. Bienvenidos, mucho gusto. Today is taking place on private land, and I will show you roughly whereabouts that is. Bear with me, sorry. Sorry, I will come back to that. Sorry about that, everyone. I'll come back to that a little bit later. So without further ado, I will hand over to Niki.
Hello, good morning, everybody. So we're here in Andalucía again. Not quite as warm as it has been on some of the broadcasts that we've done, but quite a nice fresh morning, which we're sort of relieved. If any of you saw the Portugal-Belgium match last night, they were in La Café in Sevilla, and it was 30 degrees at 9 o'clock at night. So we weren't sure what it was going to be like, but we've got a nice fresh breeze, bit of overhead clouds, and already a lot of very hungry vultures. They're all sort of perched up on trees and rocks behind me, and also kind of swooping in to check out what's on the menu for breakfast this morning. So I'm here with Christina and Federica, and they have the fantastic job of throwing out a load of lovely putrid meat. So I'm going to stay here outside whilst they're doing that. So I'll talk a little bit more about why there's a lot going on here. They're clearly waiting to come in. So you guys get on with your job. So whilst they're kind of making a start, just set the scene for you a little bit more. So Fundación Migres, Barney said, a not-for-profit organisation, and probably the thing they're most known for is they monitor the migration of raptors crossing the Straits of Gibraltar. Have been doing for well over 20 years. It's the longest running migration program, certainly in Europe. But alongside that, I think, as we've talked about sort of numerous times on these VTs, there are a lot of wind turbines in this part of the world, and raptors and wind turbines don't mix well at all. So they do a lot of work and research into interactions between birds and power infrastructure and mitigation for that, and how to prevent strikes and deaths, basically. So they're the research they produce on that is globally known. It's really important. What we're doing here is they train ornithologists to work on the wind farms and turn turbines off when raptors are coming through. But for some raptors, such as Egyptian vultures, they're endangered. They're starting to do a little better in Spain, but the loss of even one sort of breeding adult would be really, really bad. So this, where we are now, is an additional project to the already very effective work they do with wind turbines. What they're doing is they're doing some research on setting up supplementary feeding areas to keep Egyptian vultures away from wind farms, basically, so that they're foraging widely, and they still have their place sort of within the ecosystem, which is very important, obviously. But at the same time, they're being sort of kept away from areas where there's sort of intense amounts of turbines where they might come a cropper, as it were. So that's really what we're doing here today. This is I've been sort of debating how much of this to show, because I know some people are squeamish and it is breakfast, but this is like just really amazing sort of dedication, really. They sort of elbow deep in buckets full of meat. This is supplied. It is quite a win-win sort of situation, because butchers would have to pay to get this disposed of. It's just stuff like chicken skins, bones, and things like that. So they take it from the butchers, so everybody wins. There's meat for the vultures. The butchers don't have to pay to get it disposed of.
Right, I'll just attempt to share screen and show everybody where you are this morning, Nikki and Simon. Sorry about that earlier, everyone. Right, so let's try again. Okay, great. So this is the very south of Spain. You see Tarifa down at the very bottom, and I'll zoom out shortly. But Simon and Nikki and Christina and Federica are up in the hills here above Bologna. So I'll just pan out a little bit.
Oh, it's the Egyptian vulture right over us.
Right, and with that, I will stop.
Yeah, sorry. So there's let me just flip my screen. Try and get this. Wow! Can you see this?
Yeah.
So here is gorgeous Egyptian vulture. Clearly really hungry. What I haven't mentioned yet is here's the team sort of distributing the meat. Over on this hillside, you see the distant kind of silvery hills. That is some of you may well have tuned into. We did a VT way back in March or April, it must have been, I guess, from just below the vulture colony, and that's where that is. So there's around about 100 pairs of Griffon vultures, as well as probably this is one of the breeding Egyptian vultures up there. Wow, God, it's coming right in already. I'm so pleased about that. It was quite shy when we were sort of researching the broadcast. But they, of course, have chicks to feed at the moment, which is why we wanted to do this now, because they're super busy. And the guys have actually timed this. It takes them around about 8 minutes to arrive from the colony, which is distant over there on the Silver Hills, to come over here, fill their crops, go back, feed their chicks, and come back for more. So, so they're really sort of, oh, this is so great. Can you guys see this?
You can, Nikki, yeah.
Wow.
And Simon's up on the hillside, isn't he? So everyone should have a split screen at the moment with Simon panning down from the hill.
Yeah, sorry, I was so excited. I forgot to even mention, I'm sure you're all wondering where the lovely Simon is this morning. Oh my days, wow.
That's fantastic, Nikki.
Wow, and here's a raven coming in.
So once they start coming in onto the food, it'd be easier to use a scope on them. But yeah, you're getting the front row seat. I'm in row Z at the moment. So
Niki, just point out where Simon is with your finger.
Sure.
Is he up on the hillside there?
Yeah, let me just walk around the corner a little and show you what's happening. So this whole valley is they're sort of distributing the food here, and Simon is actually up sort of in a direct line up from Christina, really, up on that hillside, kind of looking down on us. You might even be able to see the silhouettes of more vultures all sort of perched up in that top line of trees there. And if you can see that,
yeah,
it looks very Jungle Book, very original Jungle Book.
If we go to scope cam, you might be able to see the Egyptian vulture. I might be able to find it. It's actually on the deck at the moment. It's landed to the direction. Can we go to scope cam? Is that possible? Thanks. Perfect. Okay. Okay. It's still right there. It's waiting patiently. And you see that yellow on the face. This is the adult. You see that yellow on the face, which it gets from pigmentations of the food it eats, which are not only just carrion, but we put out eggs for them as well. They really like eggs. And they're really intelligent birds, but they have this yellow in the adults. They have this egg yolk yellow face, and that comes from the carotenoids of the mammal feces that they also eat. They're just taking off. Try and follow it. I think it's gone around. It's waiting, it's watching what's happening, waiting patiently for breakfast. And there's Niki,
Hi.
Frederica, and Christina. Cool.
So we're still, I think probably what we may do is retreat fairly quickly, but the team are still busy, as you can see here, flinging meat about the shop.
There's a fair old quantity there, Niki, isn't there?
There is, but you'll be very surprised at how quickly this disappears. And I think, yeah, we have, I can't even guess how many vultures there are, but we're sort of just waiting up in the trees. But we have, oh, here it is again. It's coming right in.
Let's go back to Niki's camera, Barney. There we go.
This.
Niki, that might come to your hand if you didn't bring the falconer's glove though.
This is incredible. So, I'm really impressed by this is happening like this.
So as Niki says, the idea is to keep the Egyptian vultures in particular away from harm, but also the sort of side bonus is that actually it's right next to a really big Griffon Vulture colony at La Zaga, which we were at before, on another virtual tour. And these Griffon Vultures are definitely benefiting from this food, which is put out twice a week. Wow, I thought it was going to come down then, the Egyptian Vulture. right in front of you guys. It's really close.
Oh, look, it's landed.
Yeah. Try and get on it. It's a bit lower for me, I think. It's a bit behind those trees. So, Fundación Migres monitor all the soaring bird migration and the seabird migration, in particular the Balearic shearwaters passing through this narrow point between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. But the soaring bird migration monitoring is really important, not only to monitor changes in populations. This is the best place to do it, when you see how well the breeding across Europe's done or how poorly, and also mitigating for potential collision risks. So this is one of those mitigations, putting out food for Egyptian vultures helping them. Was critically endangered until relatively recently. And quite interestingly, Spain are bucking the trend for Egyptian vulture populations. And that follows suit with other conservation work for vultures. About 90% of the Griffon vulture population in Europe occurs in, Spain. And they're doing relatively well, certainly a lot better than they were 30, 40 years ago. I'm going to try and get that Egyptian vulture on the camera. It's just right next to, yeah, there it is.
Okay, I'll just put you on.
Thanks, Barney. There you go. It's already eating, already. So the guys are sticking out the food already, and right next to them is an Egyptian vulture feeding. Very hungry this morning.
How often do Fundación Migres do this?
At this site, twice a week. There are 2 sites, and twice a week at this site. Well, and alternating between this and another site.
Right.
And that ensures that the birds aren't overly habituated to this feeding resource, but it is of a benefit, and they're also still functioning in the ecosystem, cleaning up after birth, placenta, and fit animals that have killed over and died. And sometimes it's possible. There are 2 Egyptian vultures now, I think. I saw another one, I think, further up. I think it's gone behind the ridge. Interestingly, there are other species that sometimes come in. So it's not just the Egyptian vultures and Griffon vultures, not just what we think of as carrion eaters. Raven, obviously, is a carrion eater, but even things like Spanish Imperial eagle can come in. It's unusual, but it does sometimes happen that they come into this site to feed. They're passing through. And even I've known, not at this site, but I've known white storks, big scavengers, they come in as well and eat carrion as well. So birds maybe that you wouldn't think of normally going for carrion actually coming in and utilising this resource as well. So on the hills just around here, while there's still food being put out, the hills here, this is the all natural park, and it's actually full. There's a few spotted flycatchers around me. I heard as we were coming down, and we saw the other day actually black-eared wheatear in this valley as well, and Iberian green woodpecker calling, short-toed tree creepers, Benelli's warblers and searle buntings are around here in this valley, so we might see them, but they're certainly calling around. You might hear them as well. Niki, what's happening down there? What's happening with the Egyptian vulture? Is it still there?
Sorry, I was just getting a little bit mesmerised by the hard work that's going on with the things flying through there. Let's have a look around. I think you've kind of got a slightly bigger picture than I. I don't see it at the moment, I must say. Up here, up on this hill, you can see the sort of silhouetted griffons just kind of waiting for their tucker. Oh yeah, no, I believe I can see, that looks like the, no, that's not it. So there's quite a distinctive silhouette to an Egyptian vulture, as I'm sure many people know, with this beautiful sort of diamond-shaped tail. It's quite a lot smaller than the Griffon vultures as well. The Griffon vultures are typically wingspan of something like 2.3 to 2.6 meters. Egyptian vultures much more kind of petite than that. It's sort of 1.50 meters or so, isn't it, Simon?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, it's just over one. Well, just around about 1.5, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Have you got the book there, by the way? I don't know if I've got it.
I have, yeah. Yeah, I have.
So those cliffs that I'm scanning there, that's the nesting cliffs there, that's Lazaga. So we're just the other side of that. That's where the griffins and the Egyptian vultures are nesting. So it's not very far for them to come at all. Close, just down to here. Takes a couple of minutes, soaring across the valley, boom, straight in here.
So yeah, I brought the book. So although we've seen one so well now, but so here's it's a nice image of the Egyptian vulture there. You could see, as Simon said, that beautiful sort of egg yolk yellow sort of bare skin areas, the face and the feet, this lovely sort of striking black and white pattern, and we're also sort of surrounded by Griffon vultures, the top ones, and Cinereus vulture has been seen here quite recently, so you never know. Once we sort of retreat back up the hill in a little while, we may well be lucky. And also Spanish Imperial eagle has been coming in. They're quite keen on, you know, they might have a regal name, but they're not averse to a bit of carrion as well. So we'll be keeping our eye out for some other species a bit later on, once the team's finished and we've sort of backed off a little bit from the feeding site.
This whole experience, Niki, reminds me of a tour that you and I have both led up in the Sierra de Guara, the pre-Pyrenees, where we did a vulture feeding station at Santa Cilia. That's in collaboration with a different charity, the Fundación Migres del Buitre. And when we visit, we pay €10 per person to the charity. I wonder if there's any collaboration between the two charities. And is the site where you are this morning open to ecotourism? Do you take groups there?
Not currently, no. That's not part of the sort of plan at the moment. It's been done in collaboration with the they also have their own sort of national park research team doing work on vultures. So I mean, it's certainly something we've discussed, because as we can see, it's a pretty phenomenal experience. But those on scope. But yeah, as it goes at the moment, it's we have very special access to come up here and show you this today. So we're pleased to be doing that. I do often think of that, Andy, actually, when we've been we come up here to help out sometimes as well, because it's just awesome. And I often sort of think of that moment at the end when the llama guy has come, and I'm always sort of like, just maybe, but not so far. Although we have had a couple of scenes recently in Andalucía, kind of wandering llama guys. So who knows? Maybe one day.
Well, you know, so that's on the scope is on the Griffon vultures at the moment, and they're definitely waiting more patiently. They're sitting up in the trees all around me. I can actually hear them calling, hissing and making all sorts of racket. And as soon as this feeds out and these guys retreat, they're gonna, well, they should, in theory, should come in and feed. One of the problems with having this site is it's up a very, very long bumpy track, which is only accessible with four-wheel drive. So yeah, there are some complications to it, but it's something that we're looking into doing, maybe bringing people to in the future. But at the moment, special virtual opportunity to see this Egyptian vulture that's now landing right next to Christine. Yeah, it's come right in.
That's visible on my camera because it's the sun's gone in and it's now quite a similar colour to the background, but that's actually right in the centre of my camera. I'd say it's maybe 10 metres away from me.
So yeah, it's not visible for me, but it's definitely visible for Niki. So if we can go to Niki's camera.
it's about to walk in front of the bush behind that. Maybe you can now see the movement. This is quite exceptional scenes. So what the team are doing now, they're just actually putting out some eggs next to camera.
Oh, well, okay. Is it still there? It's right behind that bush for me. I can't see it. So
yeah, right. It's walking right of the bush that's in the centre of the image. But as I say, with the sun in, and you know, the kind of dry ground, it's quite difficult to.
Yeah.
It's been dust bathing as well, so it's quite perhaps difficult to pick out at the moment. Oh, here's the dog behind me. Perfect. But yeah, so if I just come around the corner.
Niki, you should lie down. It might come in closer.
So what the team are just doing there is that they're putting out some eggs. Oh, now it's up now. Maybe you can see now. It's trying to leave with a huge piece of chicken. Yeah, so they're putting out some eggs, and there's also a camera trap there. So they've been getting some really awesome photographs recently of the bird coming right up to the camera. So it gives them the ability to kind of really get a good look at individual birds and figure out, you know, track the behavior of the individuals that are coming in here. So and perhaps as we're sort of transferring up to the higher site, I'll try and get some information about what exactly they know about this little guy.
Let's just quickly whiz through the species that turn up. Kate Tanner is asking us, Niki, do you get black vulture? You may have heard earlier Niki referred to Cinereous vulture. That's kind of the new name for black vulture. I prefer black vulture myself. But do we get black or Cinereous vulture and any of the kite species? Are we expecting black kites today, maybe?
It can, yeah, so most target species, Egyptian vulture, most common, most numerous will be the Griffon vulture. We also get, with reasonable frequency, we get Rupel's vultures in this area, which are vagrant from Africa, but seem increasingly interested in kind of settling around here and often sort of hang around the breeding colony early on in the year. They've recorded both Cinereous vulture and Spanish Imperial eagle in the past few sessions. They tend to be kind of drifting through the area. Cinereous vultures breed a little bit further north in Andalucía. There's none extremely local to here, but obviously these birds cover enormous distances. So if there's kind of non-breeders floating around at this time of year, then they will sort of drop in. If they see a big sort of kerfuffle of Griffon vultures, then they will sort of drop in. What else? Oh, Spanish Imperial eagle as well. There's a couple of locally breeding pairs. So they're certainly not averse to dropping in on carrion, and we see that quite often at sites like this. Kites perhaps less so, because they're much more numerous on passage here. So as we get to the end, this activity is obviously only carried out as long as the Egyptian vultures are in Europe. Once they leave on migration, because that's the conservation imperative for doing this activity, once they leave on migration, then the sort of feeding season stops. But that does overlap a little bit with the migration of the black kites. So once there are more in the area, yes, they would certainly come in. But there aren't so many around here actually breeding. But yeah, I mean, we see all sorts. When we were sort of up here the other week checking it out, there was a short-toed eagle hanging around, there was a booted eagle, all sort of local breeders that will always sort of hey, it's free food, right? Why would you not try and sneak a little bit of something that someone else has killed for you?
Oh, it's a lovely Egyptian flight there on Simon's camera.
Oh, you got it. Oh, well done. I'm going to try and pick it out again as well. See? So we think it's got some unspeakable tidbit dangling out of its bill there, so we think it's probably heading off back to the nest site. So we'll see. Most likely it will be back within 10 minutes for another morsel. So that's really, really cool.
Thank you, Pamela Gardiner, for your comments. She's been to a similar feeding site in Wales for red kites. The famous one is Griffon Farm near Rhyadr in central Wales. That's a magnificent spectacle. Pamela writes, the birds were circling an hour before the start time. So my question is, how do they know the time? We had to check our watches.
Yeah, well, I suppose there's a certain, these are incredibly intelligent birds, and they learn fast, which is another reason to be, you know, quite sort of careful about how these sort of activities are done, so that you're not kind of, human behavior isn't kind of altering things too much and altering how they interact with the rest of the environment. But they know, they recognize cues. I'm sure by now they know the vehicle. They perhaps might sort of hang out here a little bit, see if anything's happening, and then head off if no one comes. I know, going back to the Pyrenees feeding thing, Andy, I'm sure you remember Manu has a red raincoat that he puts on, so that as soon as the red raincoat goes on, all the vultures know that it's him and start to come in, but they won't come in for anybody else. So yeah, they learn, they have their own kind of feeding station schedule and clock and things, I'm sure. So certainly these guys were waiting for us here when we arrived this morning as well.
It's also probably worth mentioning the vultures' incredible sense of smell. I know they sometimes wait in anticipation around these feeding stations, but when they're feeding naturally, their sense of smell guides us into offal from quite a distance around.
Certainly the American vultures, yeah, they have extremely good sense of smell. These guys their visual acuity is really, really phenomenal, and actually when they're searching the countryside, they form a kind of grid. It's like an information grid, by sort of observing their nearest neighbour as well as looking for what's on the ground. So each vulture scanning its own sort of patch, but also looking what its neighbour's doing. So as soon as one vulture drops, having evidently found something, it pulls in like the kind of 5 or 6 surrounding vultures go and look at that. And so their 5 or 6 neighbours come in to see where they've gone. That's why you can have 200 or 300 vultures at a piece of carrion, really within minutes of one vulture finding it. So that the distances and the precision they can see with this is really quite incredible. ¿Ya estamos? Sí, sí, perfecto. Sí. So the breakfast is served. So, I think, ¿qué hacemos? ¿Subimos entonces?
Si tú te quieres esperar aquí, como tú veas.
Okay, so we're going to wait, we're going to retreat sort of back to the car a little bit and just wait for a few minutes and just see if any of these vultures actually come down whilst we're sort of waiting here right next to them. So that's what's happening now. And if they don't, then we'll all retreat up to the hill and to where Simon is waiting. We'll see what happens on there. So just bear with me, I'm just walking in here for a bit.
¿Quieres estar aquí entonces? ¿O ya graba desde arriba?
Bueno, si quedamos aquí unos minutos para ver si bajan, no, nosotros.
Nosotros dos. El coche se va. Puedo subir y bajar. Si no han bajado, y bajo por ti.
Bueno,
¿vale?
Okay, right, so apparently the car is the cue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lurk here. The team's going to head up to Simon with the car, and I'm going to wait here and see, sort of out of sight a little bit, and see if the vultures come down to right next to where I'm standing. I'm feeling a little bit vulnerable actually, because there are some very large birds hovering around, but hopefully I'll be okay.
Niki, if they do come down like that, and I know you're feeling vulnerable, but please just keep the camera running.
Yeah, but maybe you're recording this, aren't you? So if anything goes wrong, just send a copy to my dad. Okay, so I'm going to sort of just, I think it's probably better if I maybe sort of wait here a bit quietly. So I don't know if there are any questions for Simon.
So the Egyptian vulture's back already. I can see it floating around, actually just above the vehicle. And there are a couple Griffon vultures sort of drifting in overhead as well from behind me. Let's see if I can. Oh, look at that, right next to that van. If I can get that van. Oh, If we go to the scope cam, we should be able to see the Egyptian vulture. Right, I've got to find it.
It's actually right in front of me here. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's right next to you, isn't it? So, look at that. What a view. Wow. Nice. See the yellow on the face there. That's in focus for you guys, no? That's okay? Nice view.
Good, Simon.
Okay, good. You can see all the bits of breakfast. So they do make the vultures work a bit as well. So they hide eggs under the rocks and things like that. So also have some eggs that are past their safe human consumption date, and but they're okay for Egyptian vultures. And Egyptian vultures love eggs, so this guy's probably searching around not only for the bits of butcher's offcuts, but they're also maybe looking for a nice egg. So I think I saw Christina put an egg in that area. So
we add Niki as well. Yeah, just to see that.
And I'm gonna just take my phone off my scope, because hopefully you can see how many vultures are coming in here. I don't know if you can see that. It's often not as easy, but that's a lot of vultures. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, at least 80 birds around overhead. Not many are coming down yet, but they will. As Christina said, the vehicle is the queue. They've backed off a bit, and now the vultures are coming in. I can see them all coming in from Lazaga as well. So these guys were waiting behind me. They were sat in trees right behind me. I'm out of their view, but I could hear them calling. But now more are joining from the colony as well. They know. It's not just the birds themselves that are scanning the grounds. They, like Niki says, they know exactly the changes in landscape. They have this mental map of their little patch, and they know subtle changes in it. So that's how they spot prey. But they're also keeping an eye on what's happening to their nearest neighbor as well. So, and when you get these big kettling, this soaring up of the Griffon vultures, that attracts even more Griffon vultures. There's a Benelli's warbler calling just here as well, Western Benelli's warbler. But lots of vultures. I'll switch my radio on as well. So we're scanning, and hopefully we might be able to pick out some other species now coming in with them as well. There's something very special about being amongst nearly 100 Griffon vultures and hearing them calling and hearing their wings cutting through the air as well. It's quite something. And when they come down to feed, they're proper noisy. I'm just going to put it back on the scope because they're just up on the ridge here. They're waiting. I think they can see Niki maybe.
Yeah, I think having come down and checked it out and seen me hiding under the tree, they've drifted off. So I think it might be better if I come up to you guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean the scope views should be good. So yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
I can hear them all calling behind me, so they're getting impatient.
Okay, right. So I'm going to walk up then to you guys.
Wow.
So they can have breakfast without further ado.
They're all queuing up for breakfast at the moment. Niki, when you come round that corner as well, I think maybe you'll see, I can't see them from here, but you can see a lot soaring in that, where the trees start. Maybe you'll see some there. And you know, vultures often get a bad press, not least in films and all sorts of things. But they're not only are they a vital part of the ecosystem in terms of cleaning up the mess and avoiding diseases and things like that, as we've seen in parts of the world where vultures have declined massively, disease has become a real problem. But it's just awesome to see a sky full of vultures. It is really impressive. I never get bored of seeing vultures.
As Niki walks up to you, Simon, let's just quickly deal with a question from Rosemary Hazard, who asks, seriously though, if a vulture did approach you, what's the best course of action? Presumably playing dead is not an option. Let's just be clear here that vultures represent absolutely no danger whatsoever to humans.
Yeah, it's a pity actually. That just brought to mind a friend of mine, a vulture friend of mine, and it was a young bird that was attempting to cross the straits, which they do here. Most of the young birds actually go down to sub-Saharan Africa to spend a couple of years. You know, they sort of go down there to find themselves, and by the time they return back, they can find a place in a colony with natural mortality. So this vulture was basically so tired. It was a really windy period in the Straits, and it crash landed in this person's garden. And this guy came up to us and said, "I've got a vulture in my garden. What do I do?" And so we went to see it, and it was just sat on a fence, and you could walk right up to it. And I've actually got a video with me holding the phone and it pecking at the phone. But yeah, they're completely harmless, and they are complete wimps. They're not predatory at all, and they totally just eat dead stuff. Very rarely they take live stuff, like Cinereous vulture take rabbits and things like that. Griffons really just dead stuff or placenta and things like that. So stuff that would otherwise rot in the countryside, they're going to eat it. And they're glorious. You can get right up to them, no problems. We've actually saved birds before that have become tired because they've attempted to cross this narrow divide between the two continents of Europe here and Africa on the other side, 14 kilometers wide. And they're just exhausted. And you can pick them up and you can even feed them. They quite happily take food. But the only problem is if you do that, they become quite used to being fed and they don't want to go. They become quite friendly with you and stick around. So we don't want that to happen. to lead a natural life. But yeah, they're not no harm at all. You can get, hopefully you should get nice close views as we have this morning if you come to the Straits of Gibraltar to see vultures, whether they're on migration or feeding like this. Okay, the sun's coming out, that's good news. And they're starting to drift over the feeding area. So I'm going to just scope down onto that area. And Niki's amongst them, right. That's where the food is. They're coming, I can see them here. Yeah, and the other story with that vulture while I'm scanning around here as well, it was actually the guy's garden. He had a flock of sheep, and he had this very old, sadly dying sheep, and it was sat above that, waiting patiently for the inevitable. So, and what happened? It actually saw some of its migrating peers and joined up with them. And we never saw it again. So, or maybe we did. We don't know.
Sí, voy a subir hasta arriba.
Vale, te cojo ahí, entonces voy a dar la vuelta.
Okay, dar la vuelta.
So we've actually reached 45 minutes already.
Right, okay,
yeah.
Stay with us.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll stay on for another 15, 20 minutes or so, absolutely.
Yes.
Obviously, everybody is more than welcome to do so. I will put a link in the chat for a donation, entirely voluntary, but say today, any donations, some of the proceeds will also go to Fundación Migres as well. We, as usual, will send a follow-up email with the link just in case you miss it here, and also a few other bits and bobs.
Right, the first griffin is coming. The first griffin is down. It's there. And now over my head is an absolute, wow, the charge of the Griffon Vultures overhead as well. So they're coming. Wow, beautiful. I'm going to put it on here, later than here.
I've got you both on spotlight at the moment. I have to admit, I can't decide who to. It's quite spectacular.
Yeah, so I'm actually nearly at Simon now, but I keep having to stop because this is so spectacular. To sort of try and show you. What's that coming in? That looks interesting. We were a bit worried when we first arrived because if you'd see on my camera, but here is what's left of a cow. It's been kind of hollowed out. So we were a little worried that they had already eaten, but I think that's perhaps been there for some time. And I also now have another proud owner of a Egyptian vulture feather, which I found on the way up, which is rather lovely.
Oh man!
Yeah, it's got that sort of that when they've been sort of bathing and dust bathing, they get that sort of lovely sort of peachy pigment to the end there. So it's really, really lovely. It's a lot fluffier than I thought, so that's nice.
We've had a couple of questions coming asking about the current state of play with diclofenac. Is it an issue? Is it still being used? Is there progress?
Yeah, that's a good question. So diclofenac, as many people I'm sure are aware, caused an absolute catastrophe in Asia with the population of Asia's vultures, where it's used as an anti-inflammatory in cattle. And I should say as well, the husbandry of cattle is quite different here as well. So the risk is a little bit lower, but it's still a risk. And very recently, there's been proof that diclofenac has caused secondary poisoning of, I believe, a cinereous vulture, which was given an autopsy. There you can see the griffons coming to feed. Lots. Now they're squabbling. And now there's proof that it can occur, and all the success of the EU, and wow, look at that. Or the success of the EU and Spain in particular in recovering Griffon vulture and other vulture populations. The risk of undoing that with the use and licensing of diclofenac within the EU is too great. So have to ban diclofenac use in the EU, and there are other alternatives as well. Having said that, though, I don't think it's as widely. It wouldn't be as widely used as it would, as we saw in Asia. But the risk is still there. So, and we don't want to undo all this work for all these vultures. You know, this is a great site, and this is down to the success of conservation initiatives like this, but designation of areas, protection of nesting areas, other work, partly EU and nationally as well. You'll probably notice there are some dogs down there. It's quite normal. In actual fact, it's probably quite natural in a way as well, because vultures in Africa are feeding alongside all sorts of canines. So they're quite used to it. They don't cause them any problem, but they do eat their food as well. So there's one of them. It's actually one of the farmer's dogs, but yeah, it also recognizes it gets a free meal as well. But the vultures aren't missing out. Look, there's loads of them. They're feeding up well. They're running about the place, which is quite amusing to watch. And there are probably, I'd say, maybe 80 birds now down feeding.
We can tell there's a lot more in the sky just from the shadows.
Yeah. Look at that shadow there. Yeah.
Barney, if you could, I'm just coming up to Simon now. If you could mute his phone, and then we can sort of revert to our normal sort of thing where we both speak into mine and his becomes scope cam.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Right. Just for anybody who didn't believe that Simon was actually presentially here in person, there he is. Say hi, Simon.
You've earned your breakfast now, Niki, hiking up that hillside.
I'm breathless of excitement is what's happened. Incredible scenes.
Wow. How many do you think? I reckon about 80.
Yeah.
Wonderful scenes. But when we first joined you this morning, Niki, it was pretty cloudy, wasn't it? And dull, and the sun has come out. You've got bright blue skies now. What a wonderful spectacle.
Yes. Yeah, it was quite low cloud to start off with, but it's given us a wonderful sort of fresh, cool start to the day. And yeah, now we're blessed with yet another sunny day.
Beautiful. Are they purely griffons on the ground? I think I saw a corvid, maybe a raven.
There's certainly been a raven hanging around. Yeah. Let's swap you around so you can chat to both of us. Yeah. Any other vulture species? I haven't really had a free hand to do a lot of scanning.
At the moment,
but
all griffons. Yeah. There's a dog. On there. Yeah, certainly ravens. There was a raven that just flashed through the view then. Let's just have a quick scan, see if we can see.
Yeah, quite. But yeah, you'll be these guys will be finished very, very soon. You'll be amazed. Maybe even by the time our full hour is up, they'll be starting to drift away, despite the amount. I mean, you saw the quantity that we were able to put out for them today, but it disappears. I mean, we've seen them even with a carcass. This is already sort of things in pieces, but even with a full carcass, we've seen a group of vultures this size completely disappear a goat carcass in under 20 minutes. Till there was nothing left but a handful of bones. So sort of really efficient cleanup machine, really impressive sort of how quickly they're able to, as if nothing had ever happened, you know. It's really cool.
I don't know whether it's a trick of the sunlight or not, but it's interesting to see how variable the plumage of these birds is. If you look at that shot there, you go from quite dark birds to ones that are very sandy light color. Is that a trick of the light, or is that genuine variable plumage?
Yeah, no, that's genuine, and it's often age as well. So the sort of richer brown ones are often I can't quite see there, but are often younger birds, and it tends to be as you get towards the paler end of the spectrum, they're generally older birds, and the bill has this pale sort of nail, if you like, towards the tip. So yeah, different ages. And interestingly, many of the vulture species do take quite a while to reach sexual maturity. I'm just going to move the scope while I'm chatting as well, because there's a bit of an argument going on down here. Look at that. Whoa.
Oh, la la. Wow.
Vulture bust up.
Yeah.
And what's coming in here? Is
that the Alimochi's back at the top there, is it?
No, I think
no,
it's just
that was
the
a
light
light.
on that Griffon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they take about, well, as I was saying, a lot of these Griffon vultures will go down to sub-Saharan Africa and to the Sahelian zone to sort of find themselves. It's not really a migration, it's more
a gap year.
Or gap years, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, really. And the only place you can see this mammoth kind of migration is here in the Straits of Gibraltar, and it is awesome. In October, November, December, you can see clouds of Griffon vultures, thousands going in just 1 hour across to Africa and on their way to go and find themselves, whilst the adults stay at the colonies and feed in the area and roost at the colony as well. But they take about 4 to 5 years to reach sexual maturity. So by the 3rd year, often they're coming back and finding themselves within the colony, finding a gap, finding a nice home. And then by the 4th or 5th year, maybe they might find another Griffon vulture to make more Griffon vultures with. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. So you can see actually on the just flown out, but you see these kind of the patches that they have on their collarbone. They're actually, there's not so much of people always think this there's some like think of a pecking order like with chickens and whatnot. Oh, thanks.
No worries.
Yeah.
Hang on, you're not on camera at the moment, but I'll... That's
probably for the best. But
there we go. Now everybody can see.
I've just been decorated. Yeah, so... I lost track of what I was saying. Oh, so they have these patches on their collarbones, which Manu actually up in the Pyrenees told me they're about conflict avoidance, because as they eat, it kind of fills their crop and hides these patches because the feathers are pushed over them. So you can tell if the vultures can tell which amongst them have already eaten and which haven't eaten yet. So they spot one that's already eaten and is going in for more, then that's when these kind of squabbles occur. So everyone gets their turn. They're kind of basically wearing these marks that say, I'm still hungry. So it's not so much about expressing dominance over one another as kind of like making sure everybody gets their fair share, if you like, because obviously in normal situations when they're dismembering a carcass, they have to have a sort of functioning society and work as a team to get that carcass apart so that everybody can have a share. So it's quite important that there's an element of well, trust and respect, I suppose, without wanting to anthropomorphize too much, but there's a great deal of cooperation. They're very sort of colonial, convivial livers, certainly at this time of year anyway.
The raven's just coming into view, I think, in the scope.
Yeah.
As well. I think there it is in the scope. Oh,
shadows going.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a steady audience of about 70 households with us this morning. Thanks very much to all of you for joining us. We'll stay on. There's no rush for us to stop the broadcast. If Simon and Niki are happy, the vultures are still busy feeding, so we'll certainly stay with you until the vultures start dispersing off into the surrounding countryside. I have to say, those of you sign up to our planned Vulture tour in Ecuador on Wednesday, we're going to postpone that. It's quite rainy in Ecuador at the moment, and the forest is full of natural fruit, so the feeders around Mindo are not as busy as they sometimes are. So we're going to postpone Wednesday's virtual tour. We'll send an email around about that, so you've got a record of it. An interesting question from Guy Wilkerson for you, Niki and Simon. What mammals are they naturally feeding on once dead in the area? So away from the feeding stations, what would comprise the natural diet of the griffins?
Well, sorry, there's one just about to take our ears off. It's really close. Yeah, so if you can call it natural, well, semi-natural at least. So lots of cows, goats, sheep that die. But also what's really important as well is when the animals are, particularly the cows, are calving, and not the calves. They don't worry about those unless they're stillborn, of course. But the placenta, that's a really interesting food source for them because it actually coincides with an important part in their breeding cycle as well. And naturally, there would have been herbivores that were roaming these pastures that they would have fed on. And sometimes they do feed on some of those as well. So things like Iberian ibex, mouflon further inland, other grazers, natural grazers like that. So yeah, from domesticated animals to natural animals as well. And of course the Egyptian vultures, well, they have quite a wide ranging diet, not just the carrion and the placenta, but also things like mammal feces, eggs, what else? Just about anything they can find. Wow. Beautiful.
Sorry, let me just get this guy for you. Yeah, much more sort of omnivorous, aren't they, the Egyptian vultures?
Yeah, not, well, omnivorous in a meaty kind of way.
Yeah.
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 There's, and clearly there's a lot of food around here for them, but feeding stations can help. But I think you have to be very careful with feeding stations not to habituate too much the birds, because they do form a very important part of the cycle, the ecological cycle. So we need them roaming and doing the things that they normally do, and that's why we're only feeding here twice a week. But it does have a conservation imperative to help, in particular the Egyptian vultures, but of course as a net benefit, other vultures, ravens, some of the eagles, other vulture species are being helped as well. So, yeah, that's pretty cool, and we get to see them as well, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes on a tour when we're here with you guys, and we often find maybe a cow's giving birth, and you can see the griffins in the field waiting patiently, and the adult cows really don't like them, do they? They chase them away, even though they're not going to cause any harm, but they just don't like them being around. But we often find that, or we might find an animal that's succumbed to the elements or old age, and yeah, we can often see scenes like this on a tour within a week, or so it's possible to see it. But here we're set up, we're ready to go, and the vultures are got full bellies already. They didn't take long. They're all sat in the field now, just digesting,
loafing around, aren't they?
And actually, that's a really important kind of consideration for the vultures, because you kind of think, well, there's this food and it's amongst these trees. Why aren't the vultures coming in? Well, they have to be in open line of sight to be able to take off. And a bird this big with over a 2.5 meter wingspan it's quite difficult for them to get airborne, and particularly when they've gorged themselves as well. So they have to be able to sit out in the open where they can see any potential predators, and also they have a run up to get going and fly off as well. So there are a lot of considerations, and actually we've known of carcasses in certain areas of the straits where the wind's in the wrong direction, and even though there's all this food, there's dead cow or something, the vultures will not come down to it until the wind changes. Then they come down because they can take off into the headwinds, get a bit of lift, and off they go. So over to squabbling vultures again.
Yeah, but there's also just a lot of standing about happening now.
Yeah, they're just sort of. Oh, that was nice.
So I'm looking forward to catching up with you two again later in July. We've got you doing a virtual tour for us from the wetlands down in Western Andalucía, and then we'll be back with you in early August for some early autumn migration when it kicks off. So looking forward to those two.
Absolutely.
If any of you missed Simon and Niki's Honey Buzzard virtual tour, the recording of that is on our website under the link that I've just put in the chat there. It's well worthwhile looking at it. It was a spectacular day we had above the Straits of Gibraltar with honey buzzards going overhead. So do catch up with that. It's been great this morning. Thanks very much, guys.
Really the VT with the virtual tour for the autumn migrations. So a lot of people don't believe us when we say that mid-July everything's happening. Loads of black kites, white storks coming, thousands, and you can almost set your watch by the white storks in the morning when they're crossing in good conditions. So yeah, it's a great time. Early August, from mid-July through to right the way through to December is migration. So it's a great time to come, and I'm really excited to show it to you virtually. Normally we'd be showing it to you in person, so it's a bit of a shame we're not yet able to say that we can do that yet, but we can definitely show you it virtually, so that'd be really good.
Yeah, all waiting patiently for the skies to reopen so we can send you some real groups rather than virtual groups, but it's a slow process. A couple of destinations went green last week, Malta, and some on the watch list. So you do feel we're taking small steps to be able to start operating tours again in Europe, but we just have to be patient at the moment.
That's right. Yeah, we're filling a step closer. We had our first Pfizer last week, didn't we?
Yeah.
And so we'll be fully vaccinated by sort of early July, and just waiting a little bit longer, but looking forward so much to seeing everyone here again and being able to do this sort of thing live. So,
and I just saw Sheila Thomas popped up, which
hi Sheila.
I never get the opportunity to say hi, Sheila, so this time hi, and we can't wait to see you for migration. That'd be awesome. And anybody else who wants to come too, come, we want to see you when you can.
Great. Thanks so much. Any last minute questions? We'll just close this in a minute or two. Any last minute points you want to make, Simon or Niki?
We're glad the vultures came down. We saw nice, brilliant views of Egyptian vulture. Yeah. And we're glad you could join us at least virtually.
And just a big thanks, of course, to the Fundación Migres and the team, Christina and Federica.
Gracias, thank you.
Gracias.
For the visit.
It's been a wonderful morning. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Take care on this rainy day back home in the UK. And, as I said in the chat, Wednesday's virtual tour in Ecuador is postponed, but do join us. The next one we'll be doing will be, let me just check, I think it's Costa Rica actually next.
Wow.
Yeah, Costa Rica on Wednesday, the 7th of July. So hopefully we'll see you then. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks, Niki and Simon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us again. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.